Welcome back to Dan 91's Garage. So this week we're going to talk about the different engine management options you've got for the Turbo IS200. So you've got fuel cut defenders, piggyback ECUs, and then full standalone basically. So the IS200, when it first came out, a company called TTE made a supercharger kit for it, and they supplied what's known as a black box, which was essentially a fuel cut defender. Most people who build budget stuff like this, fairly low boost, maybe the 200 to 230, 240 range, they just use a fuel cut defender. They do the job, they've been proven to do the job for many years, and no, there is no control over the timing side of things. There's no retard on boost, but it does have two knock sensors on it. So the only way that can work is the stock map sensor can see about 4 psi of boost. So you clamp that voltage with a fuel cut defender, and what happens is you perhaps put another 3 to 4 psi in, so you've got 8 psi of total boost. There's 4 psi above boost cut that the stock ECU is not aware of. With the 1ZZ injectors in, when it's in open loop, the calculations it was using for its old injectors seems to put in the right amount of fuel to keep it in the 12s perhaps as an AFR. So you don't really need to tune the fueling apparently, it just seems to work with the bigger injectors. And the knock sensors save it from the knock or detonation, because whenever they see knock they reduce the timing. That's the only way it can work as far as I understand, because there is no active modification to any sort of ignition timing, so it must be the knock sensors doing their job. So there you go. And if you're at low boost like that, like I said, it knows about 4 psi, but it doesn't know about anything above 4 psi, which is where standard boost cut is. So we're talking 3 or 4 pounds of good luck, if you know what I mean. So the good thing with the clamp type of fuel cut defender is the signal is completely untouched and unadulterated, not changed at all until it gets to the level of boost cut, and then it is chopped off there and held at an output of perhaps 4.33 volts, I believe it is. But below that, it is the true signal going through to the stock ECU for fueling and timing. The HKS style of fuel cut defender is variable. So you turn the signal adjuster, I guess it's like a potentiometer, almost like a variable resistor. So as you reduce that signal, it reduces the output. So let's say that it was putting out 4.6 volts. Now that would cause a boost cut on this engine. So you adjust the potentiometer on it until it pulls the upper signal of 4.6 down to 4.3. But what it also does is reduce all of the voltage all of the time. So 4.6 becomes 4.3, and then like 3.5 would become like, 2.9 or something, and so on. So every input voltage throughout the boost range, or throughout the map sensor range, is reduced. And the good thing about that is obviously as you turn it down, say 4.6 becomes 4.3, but if the boost keeps increasing past your boost level to say like 10 pounds of boost, the signal will still go up and will still have a boost cut that it sends to the engine. The clamp type holds the voltage at 4.3, so no, you could put 30 pounds of boost into it and it will not increase. So you lose your boost cut with the clamp type. That's something to be aware of. So piggyback ECUs, they're basically somewhere in between a fuel cut defender and full standalone. So the DET 3, which is what I normally use, obviously you connect that in. The wiring is obviously going to be a bit more complicated. So the fuel cut defender only needs power and ground, and then it hooks into the map sensor to clamp the map voltage. This hooks into the power and ground, map sensor, and also the crank sensor down on the front of the engine. So this can advance and retard timing, and it can also influence the fuel. So it can add fuel, take away fuel, and it can also act as a fuel cut defender itself. It does have a maximum out voltage. So if you fit one of these just to retard the timing by like the 1 degree per psi of boost that you need to retard it by, you can actually set this up as a fuel cut defender for the fueling, so you would have the same fueling effect as if you'd fitted a black box to it, but you'd also have the added benefit of the safer timing setup. These things are really good as well, because if you get a Mac solenoid, a 3-port Mac boost valve, you can also use them as a electronic boost controller. They also have parametric outputs, and if you want to see more stuff about the DET3, I've got a whole bunch of videos for the stuff when I was playing about with starlets and stuff, how to set them up, how they work, and the possibilities of those. So there's a whole bunch of videos on my channel if you're really interested in looking at those, because I've been quite deep into those. So there we go. They're the middle choice. Again, depends on your power output. If you feel you need the extra control over the timing rather than just simply nailing the boost cut and finishing it off there with a fuel cut defender, it's this is the sort of like in-between choice. So the DET3 can also be set up in something called fuel implant mode, which is where you take full control of the injectors. So you have to cut the injector wiring rather than tapping into the map sensor. So you cut the injector wires, twist them up, and set them as 2 banks of 3, almost like it's a V6. And then once you've got that, then you can have full control over the injectors, the actual pulse of them, not just adding or taking away fuel voltage via the map sensor sort of interception. So, okay, so the next step along the ladder is obviously going to be standalone ECUs. Now, obviously price is increasing as we're going through, and that will be up to perhaps £1,500, and that's without any tuning. So obviously, unless you're a tuner yourself, you know, you're going to have to go and hire a dyno and possibly pay someone to tune it properly. That's going to cost you another £300 or £500 on top. Who knows what price, how long it takes. So unless you're going for an all-out crazy 300 horsepower build on a stock 1GFE, which seems a little bit excessive, you know, you're going to be spending £2,000 plus to get the correct control to keep the engine alive. So obviously the wiring for that is a lot more complicated. This car has like a very early CAN bus system. It was like an MPX wiring language or something. It's called BEAN, I think BEAN, something weird like that. So the ECU talking to the body control modules and the dash. So you start taking away stuff and start messing about with removing the ECU and everything, you could possibly come into problems with the dash not working, or for some reason the aircon doesn't work because it doesn't have the right sensor that used to go through the stock ECU and stuff. So what you might end up doing is essentially, if you want to use a sort of like a generic standalone, you're going to have to leave the standard ECU in and just cut the wiring to the injectors and the coils, and you're going to end up with basically a full standalone, but wired in as a piggyback to keep the original ECU. Now, for me, that decision's easier. I'm not making anywhere near that power, and mine's an auto. So there's no way I really want to go messing about with that, because the gearbox is electronically controlled from the stock ECU. So the less I mess with that, the better, because we might end up with not only limp mode on the engine, but limp mode on the gearbox, which is not something we want to play with. So for me personally, that is just way at the wrong end of the scale. I don't need that control for this particular engine. The setup for me is going to be limited by the fuel system. So we've got a turbo that's capable of more horsepower than I need. We've got 1ZZ FE injectors and stock fuel rail, standard fuel pump. Fuel pressure regulator is still in the tank, not boost referenced at all. So again, this system, these injectors will probably flow enough for about 240 horsepower. So I don't need full standalone. And the last sort of standalone type would be the plug and play version, which comes from DIY EFI. You do have to take your old ECU, take it apart, fit the new board in. I think you have to drill a hole in the case as well for the USB or something. So the wiring side of things is plug and play, but the actual ECU is not ready to fit. So that's something to be aware of. And obviously it's going to need tuning by a professional tuner. I'm sure it comes with base maps and stuff, but to get the most out of it, you're going to have to spend hundreds of pounds on a dyno getting a guy to tune it. So another bonus with the DIY EFI setup is that it works with the standard sort of CAN bus language of this, and most of the dash stuff still works. So that's a pretty good thing. The other people to mention in this particular sort of top end of the scale are Phoenix engine management systems. They basically do sort of any standalone ECU you want, then they make like a plug and play harness for it, and it has an integrated sort of like CAN bus beam communicator thing, so it will hook into the standard systems as well, and they can pretty much do that from what I've seen for like any Lexus engine in any shell or whatever. There's plenty of people have used them in the past for stuff like 3UZ swaps into these and stuff like that. So if you're got like a real complex thing you want, and you want someone to basically build you a solution for it, then those are the guys to go to when it comes to this sort of chassis stuff. They're really good, and they've got their own YouTube channel. So if you go and check that out, they've got the guy's got like a test rig of like the front half cut of a car with the engine and some like a battery and the wiring for the dash and everything all laid out, and he plugs in the system and shows you how it all works and stuff. It's really quite interesting to watch, actually, so I'd go sort of check them out as well if you're interested in that sort of side of things. So at the end of the day, it's horses for courses. You need to choose the correct solution for your build and your intended power output. The higher the power, the more control you're going to need to get the best out of the engine, and also to do it in a safe manner. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to leave some comments and stuff in the comment section down below. We like everything positive and negative feedback, but if you're going to be negative, constructive criticism is what anyone wants. There's no need to be a troll about stuff, is there? So yeah, take care of yourselves, and the next episode I'll be showing you what I'm going to put on this particular build. Have a good one.